Welcome to the Veterinary Project Podcast, episode 123.
Welcome to the show created by vets featuring absolutely no pets. This is the Veterinary Project Podcast, hosted by Dr. Michael Bugg and Dr. Jonathan Light. Our resident veterinarians have swapped out their stethoscopes in favor of microphones to bring you the Veterinary Project Podcast, a show focused on real conversations, aimed to connect this amazing profession full of remarkable people. Through the sharing of collective stories and wisdom, and connecting over the many unique challenges we face, we invite you to join our community of veterinary professionals leading intentional lives. And now, here are the hosts of the Veterinary Project Podcast, Dr. Michael Bugg and Dr. Jonathan Light.
Welcome back to the Veterinary Project Podcast. You are joined by Dr. Michael Bugg, Dr. Addie Reinhard, and Dr. Jonathan Light. How are the two of you doing today?
I'm doing well. I'm just having a grand old time today.
Yeah, fantastic, Jonathan. I'm excited to see where you take us here.
Yeah.
Well, we have switched it up. Obviously, we are running right on the fly. We're not doing our normal intro in terms of Mike and I introducing our guests, going through what's happening in our lives. No, let's just cut to the chase. We have Dr. Addie Reinhard on the podcast again today. She joined myself and Tanisha Crocker previously. That's Dr. Tanisha Crocker, speaking about Addie's business, Mentor Vet. Today, we're changing it up a little bit. We're going to switch it up and discuss a post that Addie provided on LinkedIn a couple of months ago that got a lot of action in our professional LinkedIn world. And we're going to have some fun. As we're coming out of the Christmas season, there is a lot of people that have been traveling. And Addie's post back in September brought up some questions about how best to travel. Before we get into that today, though, let's do some introductions. For those that have not had the chance to meet you, Addie, before or know about your great company, Mentor Vet, and the amazing work you're doing in the veterinary space, provide us a little bit of an introduction, please.
Thanks so much, Jonathan. So I am a 2015 grad from University of Tennessee. Practiced small animal vet med in the Lexington, Kentucky region for 4 years in my early career, and already have experienced pretty severe burnout twice. And fortunately had some really good mentors to help support me through that, both in and out of practice. And if I didn't have those people, I don't know if I'd still be in this career. And so after getting through burnout the second time and starting to speak more openly about my experience, I started to recognize that this was not just an issue that I was having, but an industry-wide issue. And so I wanted to be able to create structures of support for others who might be experiencing similar challenges as I did, and give them the mentorship maybe that they didn't have, or maybe give them extra mentorship to help support them through challenging experiences. So in 2019, I quit my full-time job and I went back to school at University of Kentucky. I spent 2 years researching veterinary well-being and specifically challenges in the transition to practice, and more importantly, what can we do about it? So I developed an intervention, an evidence-based intervention to support the mental health and well-being of our new veterinary graduates, our newest veterinary graduates, first 5 years out. Piloted the program back in the summer of 2020, and we found some really promising results with burnout and well-being and improvements in these numbers, and was connected with leaders at Merck Animal Health in the fall of 2020. They found out about the program and they wanted to support it in whatever way possible. So within the course of about a month in the spring of 21, I defended my master's thesis. I got invited to be on the research team for the Merck Wellbeing Study, which was super exciting. I founded Mentor Vet, the entity, and Merck became the founding sponsor of Mentor Vet. And for the last 18 months, I have been sprinting. So I have been working to help grow this entity to help support more and more early career vets. Over the past year and a half, we've had 400 veterinarians go through our program. It's about a 6-month program and professional skills and mentorship. And we are continuing to grow and expand. And as I'm seeing these amazing support structures being established for young vets, starting to recognize how important these things can be for the rest of the profession. And so now we're working on additional support structures for the rest of the veterinary team. And we hope to, at Mentor Vet, help create a profession that's more sustainable and healthy for everyone involved. So as part of my job, I do a lot of traveling, which is why we're talking today. So I'm excited to chat a little bit more about that.
And a follow-up on all of that great information is we spoke specifically to Mentor Vet in detail with Dr. Tanisha Crocker. That was episode 123. So for anybody that wants to go back and listen to that great episode, please do so. We'll go into more detail, and then Addie will be sure to share further information at the end of this episode. But all that being said, and I should say and not but, today we are here to talk about travel advice. So way back in September, we were on our way down to Veterinary Innovation Summit in Portland. And Addie and I had met up just as the conference was getting going, the summit was getting going, and she had posted a question on LinkedIn. And the question reads as follows: help, any advice appreciated, especially from anyone who travels for work. Here's my situation. I'm headed to another veterinary conference, 4 total for this month. While I really enjoy the opportunity to travel for work, and it's always wonderful to connect with others doing amazing work in this industry, traveling can also be tiring, especially when it's frequent. Then she lists the things that add up. I've only been traveling consistency for work for about a year. And so what Addie did subsequently is ask for any advice, suggestions for those that travel a lot on how to deal with all that buildup that occurs, still stay healthy, both mentally, physically, as you go forward. And from there, what popped up very quickly was dozens and dozens of different comments to individuals in the professional space related and not related to veterinary medicine on how best to travel. And this is a great discussion because post-COVID, we want to get out there more. Those of you that have just traveled for Christmas, there's a lot that happens, it's stressful, etc. But what can we do to have fun and make travel the best it can be? So here we have Dr. Michael Bugg, Dr. Addie, and myself to talk our versions and then share some of the great comments that were on there and hopefully provide some value for those that are listening. Where do we start and take this off? What do you think, guys?
I want to start by just saying, travel, when you think about work travel in general, you think like, oh, like you get to go to all these different places and it'll be so fun. And I get to see all these different cities. And then at the end of the day, it's work travel. So you're there, you're working. And so that was kind of a big wake up call for me. And I think when you're kind of new to work travel, you do it and you sometimes go about it in the completely wrong way and you go too hard with work travel. And so that's where I ended up with this post, is just like, I was so overwhelmed just going on another trip, leaving home. I have some techniques for my well-being and self-care during work travel, but I wanted to seek the broad knowledge of the internet world to help me in this. So first, I would love to hear your all's thoughts on this. Like, what do you do? How do you stay healthy when you travel for work?
I will speak for myself in somebody that's been traveling for years for work and for work travel. At that, I used to get the adrenaline pump, especially when you're going to some pretty cool places or maybe places that you haven't been before. I feel that my adrenaline spikes, like, oh, I'll go walk around here, or I'll go take a tour here, or I'll go eat at this nice restaurant. Oftentimes that doesn't happen. And so I think the first is I become a little bit more aged and or wisdom in my travel career is going 3/4 of the time, just as you said, you're likely not to get out of that hotel or conference or wherever unless you consciously do it. So that we can talk about. Number 2, if you're going to restaurants, you're eating restaurant food straight for whatever that work travel time is. So by the end of it, you really don't even want to eat at a restaurant. You just want to get to your normal food, whatever that looks like. And number 3, if you do not consciously plan time to get out and do physical activity in the outside world, meaning seeing sunshine, it just doesn't happen. So I would say that's been my experience over time. That being said, when you consciously plan for it, there's lots of fun that can be had. And that's what today's about. Checking off some of those boxes.
Yeah.
Mike?
I don't have the extensive travel experience of you two. So because I've never been in a role that's required lots of travel. So my travel is typically more a veterinarian going to a conference type thing, right? And that'll pop up and then you'll go to another one. But I've never gone to 4 conferences in a month. So just to sort of set the table on my experience, for me, in terms of healthiness, trying to stay healthy, a few things I try to do is like drop in a few key items. So typically, like if you're flying into a city, if you know there's a restaurant that you want to go to, like I'll try and drop in a few anchor points, and then most of it is left open though, right? Because you're like kind of going with the flow of the conference. The other thing is I'm huge on like setting your environment. So I'll pick on Vegas just because you can find anything you want in Vegas. And so when you're planning your trip, I would look at like, what do you want your trip to be? And then that is going to dictate what hotel you should book at, right? Like you may want to book wherever a conference is because it's convenient. But, you know, if your intention is more, you want to have like some maybe spa time outside, there are some really cool hotels off the strip, right? And wherever you drop yourself. So now apply this to any city. I'll typically, and actually full disclosure here, when I'm saying my lovely wife, Rosalie, and years ago, she was an international recruiter for the university. So when you talk about travel experience, like she would travel like well over a third like of the year internationally. So she is locked in. She does most of the hotel creeping and booking. And for me, it'll start with like some of those like fitness facilities. Like, you know, what does that gym look like? Okay, that hotel is on or off the list. Because once you're there and out of your element, like you have to make it easy. You have to want to go to the gym if that's your, you know, chosen exercise outlet. So choosing the environment is very crucial.
Love it.
I love some of the things that just the intentionality of, you know, what you're going to be doing, where you're going to be. And I like the, setting an intentional time aside for you. And I think that was one of the things that I wasn't doing a whole lot. And because when you're traveling a lot, especially if it's for work, you want to maximize your time working because you're in this place for, you know, 2 days. So I want to schedule all the meetings and I want to make sure I have all these dinner things set up. And then at the end, I realized, oh, wait, when am I working out? Or when am I, and spoiler alert, I don't work out when I travel, but, you know, I think just being able to set aside some intentional time. So I started now, if I go to that conference, and especially if I'm bringing some of my team members, I'll say, hey, we're going to be at this conference for 4 or 5 days. Saturday morning, we are not going to be at the conference. We're just going to go offside. We're going to go for a hike. We're going to do something fun that's completely not work related and block off our entire schedule for that. So that at least there's some like sacred time for self-care or other things like that.
Do you do that as a team or do you give that block for them to be able to go do whatever they want?
So sometimes as a team and sometimes individual, and it just depends on who's going to be there. And so I think that having just some time for anybody to be able to do things, you know, for themselves, I think is important. And I think, and I would love to share some of the comments that people posted, because there was some amazing shared knowledge that was brought forth from the LinkedIn community. So I love, so Molly McAllister, I'm going to shout out to her comment. She shared that routine. I try to get up at the same time every day, regardless of the time zone I'm in. So I'm guilty for like going to bed at random times. And I love she said to FaceTime with her kids, and having that connection point is so important. And I actually integrated that tip. And when I was on my last work trip, I did video chat with my husband almost every day, and just staying connected to home really helped me in that point. And I think some of the other things that I really liked, somebody mentioned, I think just being more realistic about what working out looks like when you're on a work trip. So Rebecca Newman shared, you know, setting realistic expectations for self-care practices. So knowing that you aren't going to be able to do everything that you are going to be able to do at home, and being okay with that. And so that your expectations aren't super high. And Chelsea Hester also mentioned walking workouts. So, you know, maybe you don't have time to go to the gym, but walking everywhere and trying to get as much exercise as you can that way.
Fantastic option. I'm going to add to that and then also revert back to what Mike said. On top of those comments, Samantha Morello here in her comments said 7-minute workouts or hits. Quick tactic if you can't get to the gym or the gym isn't adequate is you can YouTube amazing HIIT workouts, HIIT, which will still get you that cardio and a little bit of a sweat on in the morning ahead of time. And hits are great. I also think what did she, oh, sorry, Samantha even added to this. There's an app that Johnson & Johnson puts out. I think this is the OG, she said, and a few others that are more tailored for women. They're quick to do. You can repeat them 2 to 3 times to wrap it up. And then you can do them in your hotel room, because oftentimes the hotel gyms don't have all the equipment you actually need. Yep.
Yeah, Matthew McGlasson also mentioned working out, and he shared, get a workout in every day, hotel gym, or just go for a jog. And I'm like, I love that enthusiasm to working out, but I don't work out every day at home. So that's not going to happen for me realistically while I'm traveling. But I think it brings up a good point that everyone's self-care and travel experience is going to look a little bit different. And I think you have to kind of find really what works for you. And this applies for just self-care in general. And I think making sure it's individualized. And I love some of these hacks, and I'm already incorporating some of these. Doug Pratt shared having a second set of electronic chargers so that you don't have to repack chargers. Tommy Chang packs an entire extra suitcase. So he has his 2 to 3 day suitcase with everything in it. He gets back from his trip, he washes all his clothes, and then repacks the suitcase so that when he needs to go, he can just go. And so I love that. I'm not that proactive and dedicated, but that's really awesome that works for some people. But again, I love all these suggestions. And I think that it really comes down to what works for you. And part of that is just learning what works for others too, and kind of stealing some of those hacks too.
I think so as well too. So for anybody that is on LinkedIn, which is the majority of our listeners on here, jump onto LinkedIn, look for Addie, and search out a post that she provided there approximately 2 months ago there. Dozens and dozens of hacks. Talking for the three of us, either Addie, hacks that you've taken since reading these posts or ones that you've added to. Mike, let's talk about a couple of specifics there. I'll start with one that's worked for me as well in terms of nutrition and exercise. Nutrition-wise, I pack protein now. So I just pack a plastic top, and we get our diesel protein, and I can either add that to my water in the morning, because oftentimes you're in high carb areas when it's coming to conferences or other meetings where you can't get that protein need in. That's been a huge hack for me to make sure I'm not meeting my requirements, but at least trying to hit them. And it also keeps me from being as hungry. So therefore I'm less likely to eat as much crap that I shouldn't be.
Okay. My hack. It's kind of one of my favorite comments was Brenda Anderson. She said, never check a suitcase. And I agree with that. I've pared down on my recent travel, and I just go with carry on. It's life-changing. Like I don't think I'll ever go back unless I'm gone for a long time and I have to check a bag. And then her second point was find your look. And now I'm going to expand on that. For me, and so, sorry, on the bag, I bought a Nomadic bag. So I would shout out to them. There's no affiliate there. They are phenomenal. They have compartments for your gym shoes, your electronics, your water bottle, and it's spill proof. So building off of that and building off of her find your look, get high quality clothes. So for me, my hack is wrinkle resistant, high quality clothes. I hate ironing. I want to be able to just literally pull it out of the suitcase, give it the old shake all the wrinkles out, throw it on, and I'm gone. And then functional clothes. For me, I love Lulu clothes, and they have those stretchy pants where it's are those athletic pants? Are those dress pants? Are those comfy sweatpants? I don't know. They could be anything. So you can wear them in all scenarios. So that would be my hack. High quality items and really versatile, high quality clothes.
Win. Addie, what do you have?
All right. So after reading this, and after posting this, I started just talking more to people. And this is usually what I do when I'm having a challenge. I just crowdsource and then take what I need. So any good mentee would do. So one of the things that I really worked on at the most recent conference that I went to is, instead of feeling like I had to spread myself really thin and meet everyone and see everyone and touch base with everyone, I instead prioritized a handful of really deep connections instead, and spent more time developing deeper connections with people versus like the kind of shallow networking. And that's really felt more natural for me because I like deep connections versus more shallow networking. And so that was one way of just really connecting with some colleagues and, saying, hey, you want to go for a walk and just chat and go out to lunch together. And so really prioritizing those deep conversations. I took naps. So this last trip, I prioritized naps. When I started feeling really tired, I would go back to the hotel room. I would take a quick, 15-minute power nap and then power on in the afternoon. I tried better at my portions because like Jonathan mentioned, eating out all the time. So I tried to say no to overeating. Wasn't super successful, but I'm getting there. There's definitely some progress. And for me, I think one of the most, the best advice that I got throughout this whole thing, I was sitting across from Jason Johnson and we were just chatting and he says, Addie, just leave. And I'm like, what are you talking about? Like, just leave what? He's like, your LinkedIn post, like what you posted yesterday, just leave. I'm like, huh? He's like, when you're feeling overwhelmed or tired and you just get up and leave and take a break and go outside and get some fresh air. And I'm like, of course, like taking a break. And so I was very intentional that week of a few times during the conference when I noticed myself not being engaged or being really exhausted, I would get up and I would leave and I would get some fresh air, take a quick walk and then come back. And I think, for those of us who are kind of high achievers, workaholic, nature, type A personality, oftentimes we need to be reminded to just take a break. So that is my advice to all you all out there. Don't forget to give yourselves an opportunity to take a break.
I just double down on that. When I was a new grad, I remember going to conferences and just packing the schedule, like front to back, every session. You got to have a session in every time slot, and all the networking events. And at the end, you're just gassed, like absolutely gassed. So I think, intentionally leaving blocks of time open, like you said, just leave. And then it'll be different for everyone. I'm an introvert and it's like, I really enjoy stepping out. I enjoy being around people, but after like it keeps piling on, it's nice to just disappear, for a while. So just doubling down on that.
I have then a follow-up for the both of you. And this is something that I spoke about with one of our previous guests, Dr. Craig Mosley, in terms of deep connection versus shallow. And at a conference where you're meeting so many colleagues, individuals you haven't seen in years, etc. To your point, Addie, about in this last bit, really focusing in on those deep connections. Did you have any sense of guilt, especially as CEO, strategy around mentor vet, wanting to meet individuals and get to know them too? How did you deal with that in going, hey, I've met these people before, I should give them a little bit of their time, or no, I'm going to spend more time with these individuals and really focus? How have you balanced that off?
Yeah, I think at the end of the day, I realized that the shallow connections, they are not as meaningful. I mean, I love to meet new people and I love to, and I'm not saying I won't meet people and chat with them. But what I found is in those deep connections, that's where the magic happens. I mean, I sat down and had like a 6-hour conversation with Rob Trimble at the Veterinary Innovation Summit. And it was some really life-changing, work-changing stuff for me and MentorVet. And so being able to get into these really deep and meaningful conversations is going to help you so much more than just knowing a lot of people. And those deep connections are ones that will be stronger and you'll get more out of it. Both people will get more out of the relationship in general. So I discovered, I think just through trial and error, over the past few months, that really fostering those deep connections with people and a few deep connections versus trying to spread yourself too thin is getting me further, because then those people that you have deep connections with introduce you to the people that they have deep connections with, and then you can have deep connections with those people. And so that is the way that I think setting a strategy aside, and it is kind of, there is this guilt for sure, but I think then realizing that this is actually a more effective way, because you'll be able to get so much more out of those deep connections than you would, 50 shallow conversations.
Yeah. Okay, Addie, we are lined up, because I have notes in front of me, and that was like my number one point is leave room for the magic. Because I know every conference I've ever been to, it's that stuff that just happens in the hallway or like off to the side. It wasn't planned necessarily. And then all of a sudden you just drop into, like you said, a 6-hour conversation. Those are the ones you remember. And then I will add to that, and full disclosure, I've fallen off of this temporarily, but what I like to do is after the conference, so everyone is flowing home, whoever you had those deep connections with, send them a thank you card or a note, like an actual note with a real pen, not like an email that says, hey, it was great to meet you, that anyone can do, right? Like, I'm a big fan of, like, take the time, write it out. You can find everyone's address. They work at a vet clinic somewhere. Send them a card.
So cool. And you were really good at that for a while, and you could tell the connections that you were building at that point. So it'll be interesting to see.
And it's funny, like, it sounds tactical when I say it here on a podcast. It's like, okay, sure. But it's like, it's not that. Like, it's genuinely, I'm totally with Addie. Like, I like deeper connections more than a whole bunch. And so it's for me also, like, the cards I'm writing are very genuine, where it's like, hey, it was great chatting with you about XYZ. I hope to see you soon. Like, hope you're, having a great week. Like, that is actually genuine. Then when they receive that, like, who doesn't like getting an actual piece of mail that's not a bill, right? Like, it's awesome.
Who gets paper bills anymore?
I'm gonna have to adopt this, Michael, because I feel like my method is texting, and that's probably just my generation of, like, hey, it was so great connecting, but I love the idea of putting it on paper and sending it. It means more, because it took time, because who even has stamps these days?
I do.
Clearly.
Excellent. Okay, let's drop in some smaller bombs here in good way. Anything extra, Addie, in this last year and or through the comments that are provided through LinkedIn that you've also added either to your repertoire, your luggage, or otherwise that has added to your travel experience?
Yes, I think for me, I have my separate charger thing now that I keep my separate chargers in. It's a small thing, but it's like, you just grab it and you know that you have all your chargers, because I have too many chargers, because I've got an Android phone and Beats headphones and a Kindle. And so I literally have 3 different chargers. And so having all of that just already packed has been really helpful. I think for me, what's really important with travel, and this is just for me personally, like time in nature. I just love being outside. So I try to make an intentional effort to find, at least for every trip, do one thing outside in nature and get some nature time, because oftentimes we're trapped in these hotels and things like that. And feel like you're in a dungeon all day and these exhibit halls. So getting some time outdoors, I think, can be extremely helpful. So yes, I love this topic. And I think there's so many things that you can do, and also remembering to start small. And so don't try to implement it all at once, because if you do, you get overwhelmed. And so starting with a couple of these things and make it a habit, and then add on additional things, I think that can make it much easier to actually start to apply and implement some of these things realistically.
Excellent. Mike, anything your ways, smaller but important, that you ensure to include?
Okay. I'm going to be a politician. I'm not really going to answer your question. This isn't necessarily something to include, but it was from Addie's post on, like, emails piling up. And I'll find that too. You go away for a week or whatever the time is, and you get bumped out of your normal routine. I try to look at it as a different way. So when I return and the emails have piled up, it's kind of an opportunity to look and be like, okay, what broke while I was away? Like, in the business that's running back at home, and then I left for a week, did anything, like, catastrophically fail? And it's like, if it did, okay, I need to work on a system so that next time I leave, it doesn't catastrophically fail. And then the other side of that coin is, if you come back and, hey, everything is pretty good. Well, what were you holding on to before you left that you're like, I have to do it. I'm the only one that can do this. And it's like, actually, it went just fantastic while you were gone. And it's like, okay, well, I can let go of that. Like, so I use the mini week-long sort of getaways as like, those are all trial runs on stress testing all the other stuff you have going on in your life.
That's great advice. And do you spend the day after you get back doing that? Do you recommend it in the first week, or you just do it as you have time available once you get back from that trip?
It'll be like sorted on priority, right? Like, obviously, if there's an emergency, I'll deal with that right away. I'm really slipping on my inbox, to be honest. And it's like kind of intentional, where it's like, how much stuff is really urgent that comes in, and that's just like, I don't know, little experiments I'm playing with. But
so if people haven't heard from Mike in the last month, that's why.
Oh, they haven't. I know they haven't.
Echo Mike and say, like, I've also been slipping on my email inbox and like prioritizing, the deep work and getting things done. And of course, if it's something urgent, but I've felt less bad lately about, I used to be on top of my email inbox and like respond within the day. And if it was more than a day, I'd start to feel like, oh my gosh, they're going to think da 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 da. And I let go of those expectations. And I said, we're all busy. If you don't hear from me in a week, oh, well, I don't even set, this is horrible, y'all. I don't even set an out of office when I leave. I just don't respond to emails for the week while I leave. And there's just like, I think we set these really high expectations as a society of like being tied to your email inbox. And like, if you're gonna like expect people to respond in 24 hours, like that's pretty fast. But I don't know. This is a deeper conversation.
I love
this is a great conversation, because then I want to jump in there and go, and there's different setups that you can do to still maintain to the priority of getting back to people. So not dropping the ball, so to say, but then still your sanity as well. And that goes around remote work and remote leadership and all those pieces. This is a whole separate podcast, folks.
We're gonna have to have another episode, and I'm hoping to post soon about emails and how to maintain boundaries around emails while traveling and in time off and vacation. So that we might be having another conversation in the spring.
Because what I'm hearing right now, and I'm jumping in for a second right now, is with both of you, ignorance is bliss.
Yes.
I'm gonna confess like sins here now, just because we're doing. When you get the random vet questions, this is very specific to the random vet questions, because people know you're a veterinarian. You may or may not be their veterinarian, and you may or may not have seen the animal in who knows how long. My response time on those is intentionally horrific. Like, right? Because I'm like, no, you don't get to just email me and have me drop everything just because like you want to, right? Like I don't know. There's where is it written in the world of the law that like, if I email you, you must respond immediately?
Yeah. And I will say, when I was practicing full time, because it's a bit different now, with nothing is an emergency or urgent, or tends to be nothing emergent or urgent. But when I was practicing, I worked in rural Kentucky. We didn't have emails. Like, you just had to call and leave a note with somebody and I would get back with you. And so I will say that usually if I'm in the office, I'll get back with people by the end of the day or the next day. But in my current role, slightly different. Yeah.
I should clarify. I'm talking about my personal email, not right. This is people that have like tracked my personal email, not my, like when I was practicing, like my veterinary email.
If anybody can see me, I am now pretending that I have a fishing rod and you guys are going backwards right now, trying to dig out of that hole that you said professional.
This is totally different for when I was practicing, and I also didn't have an email when I was practicing, but I'm not ignoring clients. I'm not ignoring my clients. And at the same time, I think this is a good conversation to have around boundaries with clients and expectations for clients of how quickly you're going to respond. And if it is something that's an emergency, then perhaps they need to be calling the clinic and getting the patient back in versus expecting you to respond to an email at 8 p.m. at night. And so I don't know. I think this is a good conversation to have, and perhaps we can challenge those beliefs around response to email times a little bit.
I just want to know, as
So good.
Jonathan leading this episode, how have you let us get so off track?
Well, I
You're
was just
supposed to be
thinking
in
about how
charge
I was
of
going to
this.
wrap this back into
You're
emails
supposed to
and
be in charge
travel.
of this episode.
Oh yeah, this is going
We
completely
said
awry.
we were going to have fun. So here
And
we
I
are.
see nonstop smiling for the last
Bring
10
it
minutes.
back.
We're
Bring it
rolling with
back.
this. So, all of that being said, for the last 10 minutes describing email and boundaries, let's jump back to travel hacks and ensuring your best time. In conclusion, there are lots of different options available to make your travel the best it can be. We have been joined by Dr. Addie Reinhard, who has shared her experiences since posting to LinkedIn, and Dr. Michael Bug, who has also done so. And then they have taken us way off course, and I have done a bad job hosting it. So I think this has been a lot of fun. It's been entertainment, and I think there's been some hacks gained. Before we come to a close, anything in finality and or in your pre-recording notes that we have not shared in terms of travel hacks? I've got one, and it has come into light since my second kid, and that is having earplugs. Such a simple concept, but you have those earplugs either for on the plane or in the hotel room. How many more nights of better sleep I have had as a result of them? Plain and simple. An easy one.
I don't know if I got any more hacks. The only other thing on my list that I never said was being intentional on the plane time. Like, I feel like plane time is such a gift, especially once you have kids. And it's like you've got your 2 or your 3 or your 4 hours where they literally just lock you in a box. And it's like, so I always just try to decide, am I doing like deep thinking work or am I watching movies? And I decide that before I'm on the plane, so there's no guilt and flip-flopping. If I'm watching the movies, I relax and enjoy the flight. If I'm doing deep work, your cell phone goes off. It's like the best uninterrupted time you can have.
Yeah, I would add to that, figuring out how you want to leverage your plane time, because it is an important part of traveling. And for me, I started noticing that plane time was a really great way for me to unplug. And so I would just not even log on to the email. I don't even do the screen. I don't watch movies. And I either read a book or I use that time for creative writing and just an outlet for creative writing. And it's the one time in my life right now in this super connected world where I can be completely disconnected. And so I really kind of cherish this time for self-care too. Obviously, if there's something that I'm behind on and I want to use that for deep time, then I can also, do that. But I love Michael's suggestion about being intentional about what that time looks like for you, because it is a very important part of travel time.
Beautiful. Look at that. Well, the three of us have had a lot of fun. We are way past due time. Addie, thank you very much for joining us. We would love to have you back on for what has already been half of that conversation around emails and boundaries. But in the meantime, there are going to be those that are going to want to reach out, whether it's on LinkedIn. Maybe we'll get some more comments related to your travel tips and or related to your amazing business mentor vet. If they do want to get a hold of you, where would be best to get a hold of you?
So you can follow me on LinkedIn, Addie Reinhard, or you can follow our Mentor Vet LinkedIn, our Mentor Vet Instagram @MentorVet, or follow us on Facebook. And you can check us out on our website is mentorvet.net.
Great. This has been a blast. Enjoyed it. Mike, any words in parting?
No, it was fun. I missed the first conversation with you, Addie, so it was great to finally connect.
Excellent. Well, with that then, Addie, as always for all of our guests, the last word goes to you. What message do you want to leave for the veterinary community?
I've been spending the past half hour thinking about what I want this message to be. And I'm just going to let whatever flows naturally because I haven't planned anything. And I think I did this last time. So what I will tell you is that when you're thinking about wellness, well-being, self-care, and I mentioned this a little bit earlier, what works for someone might not necessarily work for you. And part of discovering how to lead a healthier life is learning how others lead their healthy life and being able to adopt certain things within your own life and incorporate them within your own life, and being willing to be flexible and adaptable, and being willing to listen. And so I guess my message to you all out there is, don't be afraid to speak up when you're having a challenge in life, because just as I was having a challenge with work travel, when I started opening up about it, I opened up about it on social media, but I also opened up about it to a lot of friends, family, and personal colleagues. And I think when you start being more vulnerable about the experiences that you're having and the challenges that you're facing, then there's all of this wonderful shared knowledge that we can start talking about to work through how you're going to get through that specific challenge. And that can be applied not only to work travel, but that could be applied to anything in your personal and professional life. So my message to you is, don't be afraid to be vulnerable and talk about your challenges and ask for help.
Thank you for listening to the Veterinary Project Podcast. As a recap on behalf of our hosts, the Veterinary Project Podcast will be releasing new episodes weekly, so be sure to tune in as we bring you more conversations aimed at helping you enjoy a life well lived. If you enjoyed what you heard on the show and you want to stay in the know, please like, love, and/or subscribe to the podcast on the listening platform of your choosing, as we're available on all the usual suspects. If you know of others that may benefit from these conversations, we'd love it if you please share the show with them, as this will help us grow our community to reach more and more veterinary professionals. Speaking of which, if you are a veterinary professional and would like to get connected with more like-minded individuals who are joining us on this journey, please send an email to the veterinaryprojectpodcast@gmail.com, and we'll invite you to be a part of our private Facebook group. General feedback, requests for information, or perhaps requests to be a guest on the show can also be sent to the veterinaryprojectpodcast@gmail.com. Dr. Michael Bugg and Dr. Jonathan Light, thank you for listening to the show, and we'll catch you again next week for another episode of the Veterinary Project Podcast. Bye for now.